We all have questions that keep us up at night. Once asked, they don't seem to go away until we have the answers. And if we can't answer them, they can linger, like a great whiskey. But have you ever noticed that many of the questions about your leadership, particularly the ones that used to keep you up at night, have changed? Maybe you used to ask, how do I grow this? Do I have the right team to build what I want to build? How do I become the leader this organization needs now and down the road? But that was back then. Today's questions are more like, I'm spending countless hours leading this organization. Am I still doing what matters most? Is this organization becoming what we said it would become? What am I actually building now? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Over the past year, in conversations with CEOs, founders, executive directors, and business owners, I've noticed something. They're not asking questions looking for leadership advice. The questions they're asking are much different, much deeper. And if your questions have gotten a little deeper too, I think it's a good thing. I think it's evidence that you're in the tension we talk about here on Craft to Clarity, that tension between what we built and what we're built for. I'm Steve Moscato, and welcome. If you've been listening to Craft to Clarity for a while, you've probably noticed that we talk about seasons quite a bit. There's a reason for that. Almost every meaningful conversation that I have with leaders eventually finds its way back to a season they're trying to make sense of. This conversation is less about seasons and more about how the questions inside the seasons change, and they're worth paying attention to. As I look at the questions I'm asking myself now, it's interesting. They're much different than the ones I was asking just a few years ago. While I didn't find all the answers, those questions did their job. They carried me faithfully through the season. But now there's new questions, and maybe you're noticing the same thing. A question that used to wake you up at night, one you haven't thought about in years, or a new question showing up today that wouldn't have even made sense to the person you were a decade ago. That's not accidental. Your questions changing is one of the clear signs you've entered a new season. Not your circumstances, your questions. A couple years ago, I read a book called Halftime. Someone I trusted had just finished it and suggested I read it. At the time, things were going well. My business was humming along, I had great clients, and I was generally enjoying the season I was in. But at the same time, I was working harder and longer hours, building, growing, wanting more of what I had. That's pretty normal when you own a business, lead an organization, or you're in a season where success is the motivator. And that's a funny thing about success. It always begs for more. And every day, you can find yourself needing to prove yourself again. So when I read the book, it was in that busy, successful season. The premise of the book is that at some point, success stops sustaining us the way it used to, and we're left with wanting significance. It's not a midlife crisis. It's just a new season where what mattered greatly is being replaced by something deeper. The book had me asking questions I'd never asked before. What's really important to me? What if success stopped appearing? Why am I suddenly feeling this tension, and what does it mean? Halftime helped me realize that the tension wasn't because I didn't want success anymore. It was because I wanted more significance. I wanted what I was building to matter. If you're in a similar place right now, where questions about meaning are showing up more than questions about success, I want you to know that's not a warning sign. It's usually the first evidence of a new season starting to ask something of you. Sitting with those new questions is what led me to create Crafted Clarity. You may have heard me tell the story. It started with a glass of whiskey and a simple, single question. How does the process of whiskey distillation, which is removing what doesn't belong and revealing what's true, apply to leaders who are caught in that tension between success and significance? That question, and the dozens that followed, are what led me to help leaders and organizations become more of what they were built for. But recently, just like seasons do, those questions started changing again. A few months ago, I picked up another book, Fourth Quarter of Your Life. One line hit me in the face, and I can't stop thinking about it. The author writes, "When you're in the fourth quarter of your life, you realize there are no more quarters after this one." I put the book down. I just sat there. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about how to work with more clients. I wasn't thinking about my business. I wasn't thinking about what's coming next. There are no more quarters after this one. That single sentence changed the lens through which I was looking at my own life, my business, and my leadership. I don't fear running out of time, but I started measuring time differently. Success had become significance, and now significance was becoming something else. Alignment. I used to ask, does this matter? Is this really important? But even those questions have changed too. In this season, it's more like, am I giving what's left of my life to what really matters most? That's a very different question. And that's when I started wondering, maybe this is what seasons do. Maybe every season of leadership actually changes the questions we're called to carry. And if that's true, what are we supposed to do with those questions? As leaders, we like certainty. When there's a question, we want to answer it, build the plan, and move on. That's what we're rewarded for, finding answers. But these 3 a.m. questions don't always have an answer. Sometimes the season we're in isn't even demanding one. It's just asking us to notice something. Some of the leaders I've spoken with recently told me that questions that used to consume them sounded like, how do I get this off the ground? What do we need to create in order to become bigger? How do I earn a seat at the table? Those were the questions of that building season, that success-seeking season. It was exactly right for the time. But at some point, they stopped asking questions like that. And almost without noticing, new questions started to appear. The ones scribbled in the margins of books, typed into a notes app, or the ones that wake you up at 3 a.m. Why this question? Why now? Why not 10 years ago? It wasn't until I sat with that question that I realized it wasn't asking me for an answer. It was revealing the season that I was in. And maybe that's true for you. Maybe there's a question that's been showing up in your own life lately, one you haven't said out loud yet, even to yourself. Our first responsibility isn't to answer these questions. It's to simply notice them, to stay with them, to get curious about why this one is showing up right now. Because the questions you're carrying are revealing the leader you're becoming. I keep coming back to one place that makes sense of all this: the distillery. Imagine walking in, the warm air hitting your face, the smell of grain and yeast fermenting, the sound of the still. The distiller is watching the flow of liquid, checking the proof, smelling the spirit as it comes off the still. His questions are about quality, about process and output, about the role he plays today. Did fermentation finish the way we expected? Where do we make the cut? Is the spirit clean? Good questions, essential questions. Without them, there will be no whiskey. Now let's leave the room. Walk across the floor, up a set of stairs into the rick house. There's no production going on here, just rows of barrels stretching into the distance. Some only a few months old, and some that won't be opened for another decade. The Master Distiller is standing at one of them. In the distillery, this is the one they call the steward of the barrel. Not the one making today's whiskey, but the one responsible for what's still true about it years from now. He pulls a sample, fills a tasting glass, holds it to the light. He doesn't say anything. He just looks, smells, and waits. Then he takes a sip. He's not checking today's batch. He's checking a decision that was made years ago, one he won't see the full result of for years. He asks different questions. Does this still taste like us? What must never change? If someone opens this barrel a decade from now, will they recognize what we stood for? Same whiskey, same distillery, different questions. And maybe that's the pull that you've been feeling. Not away from being a distiller, because you'll always need those questions too. The ones about output and process and getting it right today. But toward becoming something more. A steward, a master distiller of your own life and leadership. Early on, we ask questions like, how do we build this? How do I grow it? How do I make this work? Good questions, necessary ones. But over time, the responsibility changes. Not just because we get older, but because we become stewards. And stewardship asks different questions. A steward asks, are we still becoming who we said we wanted to become? Are we delivering the impact we promise? And what deserves what's left of my attention? That's the tension I've been feeling lately. And maybe it's the tension that you're feeling too. Success is still important. Significance still matters. But this season may be asking for something more. And that's why the questions have changed. There's a season every leader eventually reaches where the questions aren't just about you anymore. It's the season you're asked to become the master distiller, not just of your own life, but of the organizations that you lead, responsible for stewarding its mission, what it stands for, years after this season is over. That's a different kind of stewardship. It's one thing to steward your own leadership, but it's another to carry the same responsibility for something bigger than you. A team, a mission, an organization that will outlast the decisions you're making today. Because organizations ask questions too. Are we still serving the people we were created to serve? Are we protecting the mission or just protecting the machine? Those questions aren't growth questions. They're stewardship questions about whether the organization is still becoming what it was built for. That's the whole reason I do the work that I do, helping leaders and organizations deliver on the impact they promise. Because an organization only keeps that promise when someone is willing to ask what it's actually protecting. If you've ever gone to a whiskey tasting, You know you take notes on what you've tasted. Maybe you jot down a question or two to sit with later. Here are my tasting notes from today. First, what questions used to consume your attention that you barely even think about anymore? At the time, they probably built something in you. Drive, grit, maybe just the will to keep going. What did they leave behind now that their work is done? Second, what questions keep showing up lately? The ones that follow you into conversations, onto airplanes, into the drive home. Don't rush to answer them. Just notice why they keep finding you. And third, if someone opened the barrel of your leadership 10 years from now, would they recognize what you stood for? That's not really a question for today, but it is a question a steward carries every day. A few months ago, I read a sentence that I can't stop thinking about. There are no more quarters after this one. And maybe that's true for you right now. Maybe it isn't. Maybe you're in your second quarter, not your fourth. It doesn't matter where you are. Every season eventually changes the questions we're called to carry. At the start of this conversation, I said a question you can't answer will linger like a great whiskey. I don't think these questions are meant to be answered quickly. I think they're the evidence that you are already standing in a tension between what you've built and what you've built for. Don't ignore them. Stay in the tension. Notice. Ask. Don't measure your leadership only by the answers you found. Measure by the questions you've trusted to do their job. If today got you thinking about seasons, I have a playlist of episodes all about seasons and what to notice in them on our YouTube channel, or just type seasons into the Still app at craftedclarity.net. Because those questions will lead you toward becoming more of the leader and helping your organization become more of what it was built for. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. And remember, clarity isn't found. It's crafted. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't let it end here. Visit craftedclarity.net to explore more conversations, reflections, and resources designed to help you distill the tension between what you've built and what you're built for. You can explore the Still, a curated experience that helps you find the right conversation for the season you're in, learn more about leadership experiences and facilitation through the work of the distiller, or connect with me directly for a one-on-one conversation. But whatever you're navigating, you don't have to distill it alone. And remember, clarity isn't found, it's crafted.